The latest quarter results put Disney on the path to full-year direct-to-consumer profitability. With an ESPN Flagship reveal next week, we discuss pricing and bundling strategy. Listen on.
Welcome to this week's edition of Inside the Stream. This is Will Richmond from Video News, and Colin Dixon from In-Screen Media is with me. Hey there, Colin. How are you doing?
I'm doing great, Will. I've been trying to follow some of the new fronts this week. I think you've probably done a better job of it than I have, but I have managed to capture a couple of them. As always, Reverie was very out loud and theatrical. They did Cabba Reverie this time. Did you catch Reveries?
I did not catch it. I've watched a number of the sessions. I wasn't able to make it there in person this year, but I've watched a number of sessions, and I think we're going to maybe dive into that a little bit more next week. But there was one from Samsung, some news from Samsung that did catch your eye, which I think you're going to talk about.
Yeah, that's going to be my news item this week, Will. Samsung has done something pretty unique. They launched it at their new front, and they're creating this thing they're calling the Samsung Television Network. And it is going to be quite different to most other fast channels that one will find on Samsung TV Plus, for example. Most of those channels are either genre-based, so they're really focused around, mysteries or science fiction or something like that, or they're single IP, in which case they're focused around a single show. And this is going to be programmed more like a traditional broadcast network, like a CBS or an ABC, something like that. And how they're going to populate the content for this service is really they're going to draw on some originals and exclusive channels on Samsung TV Plus. So actually another announcement at the show was that David Letterman was launching a channel called Letterman TV. And he'll be contributing some content allegedly to Samsung Television Network, STN. Conan O'Brien already has a television network, so I think we're going to be seeing some of his content as well in this channel. And they say it's going to be the home of live stuff, like apparently the Jonas Brothers have made Samsung Television Network the exclusive home for their upcoming tour. So I guess if you're a Jonas Brothers fan, you'll need a Samsung TV or Samsung device so that you can watch that tour. And they also say that they'll be grabbing other exclusive content, like apparently they have Killing Eve. They've licensed that exclusively, and they have some, quote, live sports, although you and I were both taking a look and couldn't really find much that they can be choosing from. Sure, they have some NASCAR stuff. They also have Victory Plus, but I doubt that Victory Plus will be contributing their live NHL or NFL games from those, which I think aren't nationally licensed. They're only locally licensed. So I doubt that we'll be seeing that. So I'm not quite clear on what live sports they will have on this network, but they do say they'll be using data to help programming it. So they'll be looking at what people are watching and when, and programming to that data. So that could be quite interesting. What's not clear to me, Will, is how the folks that are contributing content benefit from it. I assume that they'll get a cut of the advertising revenue, but I don't know if this is a good thing for them or a bad thing. If Samsung were to say, allow them to link directly from their show on STN to the channel carrying the rest of the content, that might be one thing. No indication that they're doing that. But I don't know. What do you think? I mean, this also has implications for the rest of the channels on Samsung TV Plus. One assumes that they're going to stick STN right at the top so that it's the first thing that you encounter. Right now, when you turn a Samsung TV on, it goes right to Samsung TV Plus. Maybe it's always going to go to STN now when you turn the TV on. I don't know, but what do you think?
Yeah, I don't know either, but I think you're right that STN is certainly going to get more promotional visibility on Samsung TVs than the other fast channels within Samsung TV Plus. So it seems like it's a bid by the company to gain more audience time, and who knows how the compensation arrangements work, but I would think that if part of STN's content lineup is from other fast channels, that they're going to get some cut of the revenue or maybe some license fee or who knows what. But clearly Samsung sees an opportunity to become a bigger player in programming and no doubt in advertising monetization as well.
Oh, yeah. I would say that was definitely true. I tell you what, though, Will, it really makes you think, doesn't it? I remember a company from the 80s that got into a lot of trouble because it not only owned its own network, but it owned all the devices that were connected to the network. So now when you buy a Samsung TV, Samsung's going to own a bunch of channels on that TV. Sounds like tying to me, but I don't know. Maybe I'm getting ahead of myself.
Well, it sounds like who, Colin? Who are you thinking of there?
I was thinking about AT&T Bell.
Oh, okay.
You remember? Bell owned the network. Bell owned the telephones, and woe betide if you tried to connect anything to their network that they didn't approve.
Well, right, fair enough. Major distinction, though, that they were a monopoly, right, at the time. I mean, they had, I don't know what market share, but certainly dwarfs whatever Samsung has in connected TVs right now.
True enough. All right, so what did you see in the news this week?
Yeah, so there were a few news items, but one that caught my attention was that the new spinoff from Comcast, which will comprise the majority of what's currently considered NBC Universal, the cable network portfolio, now has a name, and it's Versant, Versant. And I guess the name is a process of both internal brainstorming and also external consultants. And if anyone listening has ever been involved with a branding or naming exercise, I've been involved with a few of those over the course of my career. It is
Me too.
An arduous process.
Yes, it is.
There are not a lot of names left, and legal folks weigh in heavily. That's before talking about URL availability. So it's a toughie, and they've come out with the name Versant. Again, it's really primarily the cable networks group, USA and CNBC, MSNBC, Oxygen E, etc., but also digital assets like Fandango and Rotten Tomatoes and Golf Now and so forth. And I thought, so a couple things interesting. One is that Versant is really not meant to be a consumer-facing name. So that's to say that it really looks like the sub-brands, the network names, the digital brand names are going to still be front-facing, and Versant itself is not going to receive a whole lot of promotional backing, but rather be more of a corporate name. So that was one thing that stood out for me. The other is that, when the spinoff was first announced, there was speculation that the new SpinCo would become a vehicle to acquire, consolidate more cable TV networks. But the CEO of Versant, Mark Lazarus, said in an interview that actually their focus is going to be more on doing add-on acquisitions, if any, if they'll do add-on acquisitions for the specific brands, particularly in extending them into the digital world, and that they're really not looking to add on any additional cable networks. So, in other words, Versant is not really going to be a play to aggregate more cable networks under its roof, as some had speculated. So that, of course, who knows if that can change, but at least that's the strategy at this point. So that's really the update on Versant. I think the spinoff is officially set to close sometime later in 2025, and we'll be keeping an eye.
Yeah, I think this is genuinely, I think this is a good move for Comcast, and it's a good move for the brands. I think we possibly talked about this, but this will allow those brands to develop as they should, to continue to be relevant and continue to expand their audience in the digital domain. So I think this is a good move. They won't be alone. I think Golf Now is part of this acquisition. And part of this spin out and goes to Versant. So it will have at least one digital asset with subscribers, and I fully expect it to launch more. I mean, MSNBC, they'll probably augment that. That will and launch something around that. That will probably, I think, be a very good move, and there'll be other opportunities with the other brands as well. So I think that's generally a good move. But there was one other piece of news, little piece of news regarding Versant, that it had actually reached an agreement with NBCU, I think, for the advertising. Is that right?
Yeah, I think so. There was a quick release on that. Also, it looks like the ad sales will continue to be handled by the NBCU ad sales group primarily. So even though the companies are separating, it sounds like there's still going to be a sharing of resources.
Yeah, and that makes a lot of sense. I mean, NBCU's got all of the ad sales teams in place. They also have all the local ad sales teams in place for pretty much every DMA in the US. And so I think that makes a lot of sense for Versant to continue to work with them. So, yeah, that makes a lot of sense indeed.
Well, let's get into the main story this week, Colin. Disney reported its fiscal Q2 earnings and subscriber numbers for the DTC, direct-to-consumer segment, and overall pretty positive, right?
It was pretty positive, I think, Will. They continued to develop Disney Plus. So let's start there. Disney Plus actually increased just a tad over Q1 2025, this is their fiscal Q1, which would have been Q4 calendar. They added just 1% of subscribers. That's about 1.4 million they added overall, and 1 million of those were in the US and Canada, I should say, not just the US. So some improvement there, although it's pretty good improvement year over year, 6% increase, 8 million increase year over year. So that's pretty good progress for Disney Plus. Even Hulu got into the growth game here. It increased 1 million over the last quarter and is up 4.5 million on the year, which is pretty remarkable for when you think, Hulu now is, gosh, it must be over 10 years old. In fact, I'm sure it's over 10 years old. I think the only black eye here, really, well, there were two black eyes. One is Hulu Live, which actually lost 200,000 subscribers to finish at 4.4 million. I should mention also Hulu SVOD now has 50.3 million, and Hulu Live has 4.4 million, down 0.2 million. And the only, I guess, black eye, apart from Hulu's long-term or quarter-over-quarter loss, is ESPN Plus, which continues to lose subscribers. It's been losing now for over a year. It fell from 24.9 last quarter to 24.1 million. And so that's down 3% on the quarter. That's not so good. Average revenue per unit is headed in the right direction. So 7% increase in Disney Plus on a global level. Similar for Hulu On Demand, that's up 4%. Hulu Live up 5% and ESPN up 4%. So those are all headed in the right direction. So that moves us to a quick summary of the revenue of how D2C is doing revenue-wise. And it looks to me like it's going to make a pretty decent profit this year, Will. Revenue has increased 8.4% year over year for the direct-to-consumer businesses to about 6.1 billion, and that compares to linear networks, which are down 12.5% year over year to 2.4 billion. So that's pretty good performance. And as I say, they've now been profitable for 3 consecutive quarters, and their operating income was 336 million in this quarter. So yeah, it looks pretty good they're on course for a year of profitability for the D2C network. So generally, I think everything seems to be headed in the right direction.
Yeah, agreed. Just to comment on the financials for a second, that $336 million operating income in the fiscal second quarter was up from just $47 million a year ago in the fiscal second quarter. And looking at the full 6 months, it was $629 million operating income versus a $91 million loss for the 6 months in the prior fiscal year. And then, going ahead and looking at what last year's 2 final quarters of the fiscal year were like, they actually made money across both of those 2 quarters net. So to your point, it seems highly likely that this is going to be the first profitable fiscal year for the DTC segment, which is actually exactly what Bob Iger had promised to deliver.
Yeah, and in fact, by the end of next quarter, I expect it to have earned something like 1 or 1.2 billion over the previous 4 quarters. So that is pretty good progress. Now, you had a chance to listen into the early earnings call. It's a little bit early for me here on the West Coast, 5:30 a.m. my time. So catch us up. What did you learn from the earnings report? Why don't we start with what you heard about the ESPN product that they will be releasing later this year?
Yeah, so that's been referred to as, quote, ESPN Flagship, the DTC version of the full ESPN product. Apparently, coming next week is the announcement of the actual name, the launch name for this ESPN DTC product, along with pricing. So Bob Iger said that's coming next week, and it's going to be heavily integrated, no surprise, with Disney Plus and Hulu from a bundling perspective and also from a UI perspective. He anticipates, as he said, a seamless experience between the various services. And, that is going to be a really big piece of news to follow next week. It's been in the making for years now. People have speculated on what the cost of ESPN direct-to-consumer is going to be. And we could actually take a moment here to speculate ourselves. One data point would be what Venue Sports was looking to charge for its product, which was, I think, $40 or $43 per month, if I recall correctly. So here's a question for you: over, under $43 a month for ESPN Flagship, whatever it's to be called. Colin, what do you think?
I think it has to be under that. I mean, that would seem a little too much for me. I was expecting it to be somewhere in the $25 to $35 range, Will, maybe $30.
Yeah, I hear you. I mean, the back of the envelope that I've always thought about is that, ESPN gets whatever, call it roughly $10 a month in, carriage fees, probably more than that now. And so if they got even 25% of the pay TV universe to be subscribing direct, they'd need to charge at least 4 times as much. And that's before talking about operating marketing costs for ESPN Flagship. So I've always thought of it closer to the $40 a month range. But to your point, it could be less than that. And certainly if it's sold as part of the bundle with Disney and Hulu, for sure it's going to be less than that.
Yeah, and particularly one thing that I think kind of makes it an interesting proposition is that apparently they say that if you have a pay TV subscription and you get ESPN as part of that subscription, you'll get access to this product. It makes me wonder if the subscribers to Sling TV will get access, because that has ESPN, but it doesn't have all of the ESPN channels. What about YouTube? I wonder if it'll include YouTube TV as well.
Yeah, that question came up on the earnings call, Colin. I'm not 100% clear whether that's actually going to be the case, whether you get the full, as Bob Iger said, the full ESPN Flagship bells and whistles if you're only a subscriber through pay TV. It was a little bit murky what that's going to be. I'm guessing that they'll clarify that next week.
Yeah. I don't know either. I would actually be surprised if they did give this to pay TV subscribers for free. One of the things Iger stated many, many times is he expects this ESPN Flagship product to be the focus of ESPN going forward. And so if that's the case, why would you give it to people right now who have something that's much less than ESPN Flagship is going to be? So I'd be surprised if he did get it. I wonder, one of the things that set me wondering, you said that they said it's going to be fully integrated with Disney Plus client as it is today. I wonder if it's going to have a standalone presence at all, if it's going to have a standalone app at all. And that also made me wonder, does that mean that I have to be subscribed to Disney Plus or something else to sign up for ESPN Flagship? And I guess that's another question that we as yet don't know.
Yeah, so I mean, a couple of thoughts. I would think that it'll be available on a standalone basis, but the discount for taking it as part of the bundle will be compelling, as we just talked about a moment ago. And then back on the topic of whether PTV ESPN subscribers will get access to the full ESPN Flagship product, I'm with you. I think it's unlikely that that's going to happen. They may get some pieces here and there. But to your point, this new ESPN direct-to-consumer product is really, I think, the future of ESPN, full stop, right? And they're going to want to create as many incentives for people to migrate over to it or to pick it up in general as possible. And the primary way to do that is going to be with, clear advantages relative to the linear stream, the linear product. So, yeah, I would think that it's not going to be a full give to the pay TV subscribers, and also that there will be a standalone opportunity to subscribe to it. Just to add quickly to the couple of the things from the earnings call, back on your original comment in terms of the subscriber gain, although modest, but still a subscriber gain this past quarter for both Disney Plus and Hulu. The main comment, I think, two comments were that Hulu is having an positive impact on Disney Plus retention, and that churn across the board is down. So those were a couple of the reasons that were cited for why subscribers inched up modestly. They also called out a few things that are happening and continuing to come down the road. One is improvement in the underlying technology for the overall app, and they focused on page sharing rolling out. We know that's been a huge win for Netflix over the past couple of years. Also highlighted personalization of the app and advances in ad tech. And they also highlighted increasing investment in content for international and local-based content. So those were the three areas that were called out. They did note that the climate for DTC advertising has been challenged by large amounts of new supply of ads from newer entrants. They didn't name any names, probably thinking of Amazon, but could be others as well. And I think DTC advertising was down a bit in the quarter, wasn't it? Maybe down 10, 15%. Yeah. I can't remember the exact number.
Yeah. That's really interesting. The bundle really seems to be providing tremendous benefits to the rest of the products. One of the things I found quite interesting is I was looking at ESPN in quite a lot of detail before we chatted. And one of the things I've noticed with ESPN is that there is very little coupling between an ESPN Plus price increase, I should be clear, an ESPN Plus price increase and a change in the acquisition or not of new subscribers. So, the last price increase was a couple of years ago, and I noted that when they had that big increase, the ESPN continued to gather new subscribers at about the pace it was before the increase. And I put that down to the fact that a lot of people now are getting it as part of the bundle. And so they were really insulated from that price increase because they really didn't see it if it's part of that bundle. And I wonder if that is the case as well for bundle subscribers to Disney Plus and to Hulu. And that's why churn and price increases really don't seem to be impacting churn, because the bundle subscribers are really insulated from those individual increases. They have increased the price of the bundles, but not nearly as fast as they have the standalone products. So that could really speak to what's going on there. The other thing that I just want to sound a note of caution here. I think Disney's feeling probably pretty pleased with themselves at the moment. But one of the things that they have done, which we've talked about in the past, is that they have cut back a lot on the content that they're feeding into Disney Plus and Hulu. And that, although they seem to have gotten away with that for the last year or so, I don't think that is something that they can sustain, particularly when people like Netflix are continuing to invest at the level of as they have been, and in fact increasing that a little bit. And this actually reminded me that in TiVo's latest video trends report, which we talked about last week, there was something we didn't talk about, and that is the top reason for cancelling an SVOD service. Was not prices for the first time. It was we weren't using it enough. And that would directly reflect on the fact that there's not enough content to draw people in. So it was close. 17% said there weren't enough. We weren't using it enough. And 16.9% said that it was raised prices. So it was close. But I think that's significant that Disney, I think, is going to have to up content creation in order to retain subscribers. And I think if they don't, they will. This growth that they've seen this year, certainly in the US, is clearly slowed. And I think that could really turn down if they don't start producing more content for it.
Yeah, that's a fair point. And they also were cautious about their growth in subscribers for next quarter. I don't think they issued an actual number, but they did have a cautious note on that. So we'll have to keep an eye. And the other thing I would say, though, Colin, is that, as this new ESPN DTC product gets incorporated into the bundle, I would think that that's going to add some juice to the bundled subscriber number.
I think it probably will.
Especially if it's priced right. Yeah,
an interesting move. So one last question before we finish our podcast this week. How did Bob Iger sound? I mean, this guy. He's supposed to be working on a successor. He was pulled back in to take over. Yeah. Any hints, any words in the call that
he didn't sound
for his successor?
He didn't. No. I didn't hear any discussion of that, and he certainly didn't sound any worse for the wear. I think he was actually dialing into the conference call from Abu Dhabi, where he just announced that they're going to be building a new park, and I think that's going to be their 7th global park, if I'm not mistaken.
But goodness.
In any
Abu
event,
Dhabi.
Yes, they're going to be the site of there. They've partnered with a local company there that's going to actually, I think, build and maybe even operate the park. So, no, that's going to be a potential big driver of new revenue for them and tapping into the global market for the Disney experience.
Wow. Well, I don't know. That park, I wonder if it's going to be completely covered. I suspect it will, because it gets kind of warm in the summer in that area.
Fair point. Well, let's leave it at that for right now, Colin. Next week, maybe we'll have some news on the ESPN DTC product that we'll be able to chew on a little bit. And no doubt we'll be talking a little bit more about what happened at the new fronts this week.
Yeah, looking forward to it already, Will.
Okay, Colin, great chatting. Thanks, everyone, for listening in this week. And we'll see you all again in the next episode. Inside the Stream is a production of In-Screen Media and Video News, all rights reserved.